Hey everyone, it is Sean, and we are back with our Push Talk Christmas Week edition. This is so weird of me because we're not in the studio, as you guys can see. I'm in my office today, nevertheless, we have a very, very special guest on board today. We have Reverend Darius Butler, who's running for Congress in the Eighth District. And we were just having a discussion before we got started. First off, hey Reverend Butler, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm blessed, man. We actually met at our last One Accord conference,
Yeah.
and it was a blessing to actually meet you there. And you introduced yourself to me, and you stated that you actually running for Congress for the Eighth District
Mhm.
in
Right.
Georgia. Explain to people, because we was talking about that a minute ago. That's 30 counties, right?
Yes.
Explain to people
Yes.
like how the geographic area of what the area in which you're running for.
Got you. So anyone who is familiar with the state of Georgia knows that Georgia is really massive when you really, from bird's eye view, it's massive. So the 8th district starts at Monroe County, which is Forsyth, right 2 counties above Macon. And it stretches from Monroe County all the way down 75 to Valdosta and Thomasville. So initially it was 24 counties. Now with redistricting, it's gone up to about 30 counties. So we've taken more rather than just the 75 from Monroe to Forest all the way to Valdosta. Now we've gone east, taken more from District 10 and District 1. So now we go as far left as Milledgeville, as far right as Milledgeville, and Coffee County, Jeff Davis, all the way down to Valdosta. So it's a massive spot of land.
Man, that's amazing. So, what motivated you to want to run for Congress, man? With everything that's going on in Congress, what made you wake up and say, "Hey, you know what? I feel like I can make a difference in this setting."
I'm gonna be honest with you. You go through life doing mainly like what I did, just saying, "Hey, things are terrible. We need to fix them." And just so happened to have been, being a pastor and having my own nonprofit, trying to give out food for food drives, trying to help people pay their bills and things like that. And you do that so much that you start to figure out, okay, well, why is it that people can't seem to get ahead? Why is it that the church has to constantly come in to be that buffer? Why can't, why are people having these types of issues with trying to just get on solid ground? And it turns out that most of that has to do with your legislature, has to do with your voting, with the people that's in office. They control, money that's going in for equal and fair housing. They control, making sure there aren't food deserts and things like that. So you go through enough of trying to help people that you then decide, hey, let me just go straight to the source.
One of the things that I find amazing, I remember having someone who's running for agriculture secretary on our podcast, and he was talking about how in some of these rural areas, which based upon what you're saying about geographic area,
Mhm.
these are rural areas, right? How the only grocery store they have is a Dollar General. They
Yes.
don't have a Publix. They don't have a wall. They don't have a Publix or a Kroger or anything like that. The only place they know to get groceries from is a Walgreens, and I know that Senator Warnock has been working on farming issues as well as Senator Ossoff. What are some of the things that, from a congressional standpoint, you could do to make an impact there?
Well, the one thing is having partnerships with our agriculture secretaries, having partners with our secretaries when it comes to, like I said, agriculture, labor, to say, hey, let's make sure that we have options for people to be down here. Like you just said, most people, their grocery store is Dollar Generals, the Walgreens. In my hometown of Hawkinsville, Georgia, the grocery store was Harvey's. Now it's a Little Giants, but that's the only grocery store in the whole town. So it
Wow.
is partnering with these agriculture, it's partnering with the Secretary of Agriculture, is partnering with our governors, making sure there's money going into rural, investment, ensuring that people have opportunities to get better food. We talk so much about saying, oh, we want people to be healthy, oh, we want people to have every opportunity, yet most people don't have access to the Whole Foods, the Walmarts. They don't have access to the all organic sections. So just being able to put more of an option for people, having, Kroger's or Walmart's, the marketplaces, food depots, things like that, just something to give people other options. One that will fight with the inflation costs to make sure that the cost of those foods go down, because there's actually going to be some type of people have to challenge the prices. So one store, because they are the only store in the community, won't have sky high prices. It ensures that the prices tend to go down, and it ensures that people have options to get healthier foods.
So I was just talking earlier today. One of the things that has impacted your area tremendously is hospitals being
Yeah,
closed, right? Um, Tell us about that. Like, so what happened? So COVID came in, and
yeah.
in the point where we needed hospitals the most. Um,
Exactly. And even pre-COVID, the state of Georgia lost in total 10 hospitals. I don't know if you remember a couple of years back when there was the whole, let's save Grady Hospital, let's save Grady, Atlanta can't live without Grady. Well, from then to now, we've lost 10 hospitals in the state of Georgia. In my district alone, we've lost three. So what that means is that you have people living in, say, for example, Bleckley County, who have to drive from Bleckley to Macon, which can be a 30-minute to an hour drive on back roads. Now, let's just say if you are having a heart attack and you have to make a 30 to an hour drive, that's life and death. So we've lost hospitals not only because of COVID, but because the fact that our governor refuses to accept the federal funding that has been allocated due to the Affordable Care Act. And now that's been almost 10 years now that
mhm.
Georgia has refused to take all of the federal funding that has been allocated to it. It's ridiculous.
So one of the things that I know that you said that one of the big initiatives you have is hospitals. What are some of the things from a congressional standpoint that you guys can do to make sure that we're securing these hospitals, to make sure people have someplace to go?
Yeah, well, the one thing that we can do is not only make the money accessible for our states, but to make sure that it's mandatory that the states take it. Making sure that the states actually do what they need to do to take the money. We have the option right now where the governor can say, approve or deny. We'll take the money, we won't take the money. And if they do take the money, just as so many states have taken COVID aid and put it, I think Alabama, for example, took COVID aid and put it towards building new jails, ensuring that the money that is allocated to the state for federal funding, for
We lost you on your sound for a second. I'm sorry. We're still losing you on your sound. Can't hear you.
okay,
Now you're back. You're back.
I don't know why this thing is just. Can
No,
you
you're
hear me
back.
now?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why. Like I said, I put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and for some reason, they're still calling. I will never understand how they're doing that.
Welcome to the world of iPhone, man.
Yeah. And now I just need to wait to make sure your audio can come back in. So hopefully it'll come back through in a moment. There we go. I think I got you now. But yeah, so basically, we have a
We did
situation
lose your
where.
video, though.
Say what now?
We lost you on the video as well.
Oh, Lord. Well, yeah, I hope. Has the video come back up yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Let's see. I really wish. And I thought, yeah, and I have the phone on Do Not Disturb. I don't know how the calls are still coming through. Let's see. Wow.
But while you're working on that, keep on me talking about the hospital portion of it.
Yeah. So basically, like I said, we have so many people who are in life or death situations to the point where if you have a life or death, a heart attack, stroke, anything like that that needs immediate care, you have to drive from Bleckley County to Macon. You have to go from, for example, my hometown, Hawkinsville in Pulaski County, up to Warner Robins. That's ridiculous. And
So, seems like we lost. Reverend Butler. So we'll give him a little time to come up on for the and he's back. See, just a little patience.
Some kind of frustration. I really truly do apologize.
Oh no, you're fine, man. We still don't have your video, but I mean, we want to keep on talking about some of the things that you are referring to. I see you now. I don't hear you no more. I can't hear you now. Mm-mm. I still can't. I still can't hear you. So we're gonna come down off live for now.
Okay. Can
Now,
you
now
hear
you're
me?
back. Yeah, now you're back. So we'll keep
Okay.
going live. We're still live, so we're not gonna stop. And
Okay.
everybody, just bear with us. This is technology, the new age in which we do
Yeah.
everything virtually. But so you were saying about the hospitals, and we have to make sure that we're funding our hospitals.
Right. So it's just making sure that we're funding the hospitals, making sure that we're doing all that we can to ensure that every county has a good hospital and ensure that even the counties that have good hospitals have doctors there that really care. So sometimes what I hear from people in my hometown of Hawkinsville, Georgia, they say, well, I don't want to go to the hospital. We have what's called Taylor Regional.
Mm-hmm.
And they say I don't want to go there. You know, those doctors they might not care about me, or oh, I might they don't have all the options for me. So, for example, people will say all the time, oh, they don't have the fancy equipment that maybe Warner Robins has or that Macon has. So people feel like they have to still drive, an hour and a half just to get to a hospital with the fancy equipment. So it's making sure that regardless of where these people are, there is a well-rounded hospital with well-rounded doctors, doctors that are from that community who genuinely care about those doctors, and ensuring that we do a better job to make sure that doctors are not just prescribing just medication just because, and ensure that they're actually taking time to truly care for each and every individual.
So one of the things you hit on something really important, right? How do we fix that, right? So how do we make sure that one of the biggest problems we know is the opioid crisis, right?
Right.
We talk about it all the time is that people are medicated versus actually being treated for a lot of different things. How do we switch from that dynamic to where we don't have a system? Because I know for a fact, for somebody who's been in the medical system for like the last 4 years tremendously, doctors get trials of stuff and they'll offer it
Mhm.
to you and keep on giving it to you and keep on giving it to you. But how do we get out of that platform?
Well, for one, I think getting out of the how, for example, for example, how most medical professionals are tied into the pharmaceutical companies. So where pharmaceutical companies are sending, their financing doctors and hospitals when they give out certain types of medications. I
Mm-hmm.
think the one thing is going to be deprivatizing these types of institutions, ensuring that doctors are giving medication because it's actually the right medication to have, and not just simply because the pharmaceutical companies are giving them a subsidy for that. So I think the biggest thing is going to be creating a more fair and a more just medical system. So ensuring that these pharmaceutical companies are not acting as the doctor, actually providing the doctors with the opportunity to take on the mantle, taking out the secondhand intervention when it comes to your insurance companies. Because, say, for example, same thing with the life altering care. If you need a certain operation, but your insurance company says, "Oh no, 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 we won't be covering that," or "Oh no, we're not going to do that for you," what happens? You don't get that care. If you
Right.
can't pay for it out of pocket, you don't get it. So I think it's going to be, like I said, deprivatizing the pharmaceutical companies and ensuring that we remove that type of medical intervention.
So one of the things that um, and I get it, right? Health insurance is extremely important. Healthcare is extremely important. I myself have had three surgeries. No, I'm sorry, 8 surgeries over the course of 3 years. So and I remember taking a job one time where the only reason why I took the job was for the healthcare. Because at the end of the day, after I got done paying my portion of healthcare, I was probably bringing home like $300 or $400 every 2 weeks because healthcare is so expensive.
Hmm.
What can we do as a country, and what are some of the things that you're planning on doing to try to help drive down the cost of mental health healthcare?
Well, here's my biggest thing is I don't believe that it makes any sense at all that our health care is attached to you having a job. I think that is just the craziest thing in the world. We are one of the richest nations on this planet, and the fact that we cannot provide adequate and sufficient care for each and every citizen is a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's going to take expanding our healthcare system through Medicare buy-ins or whatever the case may be to ensure that each and every person has access to this insurance and at a low cost. Because, for example, I actually signed up for the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, but because once again, the state of Georgia does not accept a lot of the federal funding. For me, as a person, as me, a young, able-bodied individual, it would have been $500. Now, mind you, I wasn't working a job. I was out of a job, and that was my point in applying for the ACA. $500 a month to me was ridiculous because if I already don't have a job, how am I going to afford $500 a month for insurance? All because I'm an able-bodied individual. So it's gonna take us actually using the good common sense practices to ensure that hey, we have sufficient opportunities for people to have healthcare, to make sure that we have everybody's be able to be covered, and still by saying you don't have to leave your private insurance. I think that's the one thing, the one sticking point that a lot of people have because they're in the mindset that they will have to leave their private insurance, be kicked off their private insurance, and go over to a government-funded insurance program. And I think that that's the wrong thing to do. I think
Right.
what we should do is open up the option for everybody that wants to have it. And as we continue to perfect it, that's how we convince those people to come along. If we just tell people right now, end your private insurance, it is what it is, people are going to be angry and they're not going to understand that. But if you say, hey, we're going to phase out private insurance over the next 5 to 10 years, so here's the government option. We want everybody that wants to sign up, go ahead and sign up. And over the next 5 years, we're going to kind of phase out private insurances. So we're going to encourage each and every person to sign up for this within the next few years. I think that's the best way to actually make some substantive changes.
I would want to talk so much more about healthcare because there's so many details of that. But I do want to shift subjects here a little bit.
Okay.
So the last one of the things that we spoke about too, Brian, too, is that you said one of the campaign pledge or campaign issues you're running on as well is funding for schools.
Yeah.
What's going on in the 8th district?
I'm gonna be honest with you, man. If you really think about once you get outside of the metro Atlanta area, you have well, let's even go back further than that. The way that our schools are funded right now through property taxes. Okay, so when you look at schools being funded through property taxes, we look at even in the metro Atlanta area, schools in a lower net worth community have less funding, of course. Well, as we go further south and outside of the Beltway and outside of 285, you end up in a situation where those kids who are, say, in rural Georgia, where maybe property taxes might be $100 or $200, where there's one or two high schools and it's a lower income. The average household income might be $20,000 to $30,000 a year. Well, why is it that those kids don't deserve the exact same quality of education? Why is it that think for example, when we saw COVID, when COVID hit and so many kids were sent home to do their virtual learning down in Warner Robins in Macon, because of the vast internet deserts where there's not the Wi-Fi, there's no 5G towers, where you start to get into a lot of those dead spots. Kids had to go where they had to bring, school buses down to the middle of the road to try to provide Wi-Fi for houses.
Oh wow.
That those types of things are ridiculous a when you have the capability to do better, when you have the option to do better. So my thing is one, decoupling our education system with property taxes, because to me, no matter what zip code you're in, every Georgia child deserves the exact same quality of education.
So one of the things that's really important is that we've been talking about recently a lot about education, about minorities as well,
Mhm.
and the rates in which we're suspended in. And we actually picked up the mantle talking about how African Americans are disproportionately the lower enrollment in all these counties, but
Right.
the higher suspension and expulsions in all these counties.
Correct.
And that's something that a lot of people are not talking about, right?
Hmm.
How do we deal with that? You know what I'm saying? Like we see issues as far as um, racial disparities all over the state, all over the country. But when it's in home backyard, I think it's something it needs to be something that we take a lot more seriously. What are some of the things that you think, from a congressional standpoint, we can do to make sure that we're not disproportionately suspending or expelling African Americans or any other minority
Yeah.
at a higher rate than anybody else?
Yeah, well, for one, ensuring that the guidance counselors, the principals, vice principals, all of them, that it's a diverse staff. That's number
Right.
one. Diversity in the staff, and ensuring that outside of school, that these kids have something to do, they have something to look forward to. The one thing that we know is idle hands do some of the worst work.
Hmm.
So when you have communities that don't have, for me, museums. Now, I know I'm a special breed, but when you have communities that don't have museums, a lot of the after-school programs, there's not much for them to do. You end up having more kids be just all over the place. You have more kids just being in those situations, those bad, tough situations. So I think that's number one, diversity, and then having something for the kids to do outside of school and something to kind of keep their minds together.
You
The
know, one thing I
Oh, go
remember,
ahead.
and I think we're around the same age. I think we're around the same age. I'm not
I
100.
think so. Yeah.
But when I grew up in Florida, like when you got suspended from school, and I say this all the time, you didn't go home. It was not a home trip for you. They sent you to like the local church, and there was a program at the church that still allowed you to be able to get your education, still allowed
Hmm.
you to do your schoolwork, but at the same time you were not on campus. And it's
Exactly.
still you still had to be there the same amount of time that you would be there in school. I think the village to raise a child metaphor has been taken out so much that
Yeah.
now we don't even know how. I don't think we know how to get back to that.
You're
And
right.
I think it's going to be extremely difficult. But one of the things too, you brought this up earlier today, and I'm going to bring up two different subjects when I talk about
Okay.
it. So you brought up that one of your platforms is to fight inflation, right? You
Right.
kind of remind me of somebody who's on the Senate side who has a D next to his name, Senator Joe Manchin,
Right.
who his argument has been that the reason why he's not going to support the Build Back Better program is because of the fact that it will continue to inflate
Hmm.
um, that inflate the economy. So, from a standpoint from the eighth district, how has inflation affected the eighth district? First off, and then also, what do you feel about? How do you feel about the Build Back Better plan? Do you feel like it's something that needs to be passed? Do you think that it will make a difference as far as raising inflation and affecting the community in which you're looking to serve?
Yeah. Well, let me take the latter first. Um, I think the Build Back Better plan is a phenomenal plan. I think it is a necessity for our growth and our success. You know, free preschool, family leave, things like these make a world of a difference, especially when you are in a rural community, when you are already kind of behind the barrel, when financially speaking, you don't have the access to the 40, 50, 60, 70, $80,000 jobs. So I'm all for it. I'm all for the Build Back Better plan. I'm all for the child tax credit, even though I believe it should be expanded. I think there should be some revisions to make sure that we're not leaving out some of our seniors and our other populations. But I'm all for it. I'm all for building back better. It is a necessity. Um, in regards to Senator Manchin, I'm an optimist. I've always been an optimist, and I was very optimistic that we were getting somewhere in the Congress. I think, in my opinion, that when something that I've said, and fully, full disclosure with you, something that I said from the beginning, just talking to some of my friends who are also running for Congress in other districts, was that Build Back Better probably was not going to get passed this year anyway. I already kind of figured that out in my mind well before Senator Manchin did it, simply because he kept saying from Jump Street that he was not with the inflationary costs of the bill. Now, to me, I think inflation is just something that's going to be around Yeah, I know. Good
Now
golly.
you back.
I tell you, they keep calling me. I don't know why they won't leave me alone. The point of the
They
matter
love
is,
you,
I
man.
think that when it comes to the building back better, um, I think we've got to do a better job of one, putting forth a realistic plan. And two, when it comes to the Democratic Party, I genuinely felt that what we need to do is we need to focus on voting rights. We need to make sure that we come out and we expand our totals in the House and the Senate, because a 50-50 Senate is not, it's just not the equation for success. You know, when you have where 1 to 2 senators can hold up a whole deal, that's when you have to say, okay, let's focus on what's going to help us expand this out. So I think we should not have jumped on building back better initially. We should have said, okay, let's focus on voting rights. Let's make sure that we can do some of the small things, criminal justice reform. Let's make sure that we mobilize the Democratic base so that way in 2022 we can expand the margins in the House, and we can expand the margin in the Senate by getting different people elected, like Val Demings, Malcolm Kenyatta, Charles Booker. You know, let's expand our margin, because right now, as it stands, Senator Joe Manchin, he has the veto. He has veto power right now, and I think
Yeah.
that us having any type of inkling that, you know, Joe Manchin's going to go with the Democratic Party, he's going to stand with the party wholeheartedly, is just it's just unrealistic.
And I think back to, I
Oh
think I
wait, I'm
watched
trying
an
to. For
interview.
some reason, I can't hear you now. Give me a moment. I can't hear you. I want to make sure I can. Want to make sure I can get you. And I have the phone on Do Not Disturb.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, okay. So I don't
Can you
know
hear me?
if you can hear me or not,
I can hear
but
you.
I
Can you?
can't not hear you. And it's because they keep calling me. I don't know why they keep blowing me up. I guess they really want to talk to me.
Um, I'm trying to see if there's a way for me to
Yeah, no, I can't hear you.
at all.
Um, and I'm trying to figure out why. Let's see if I think if I go back. Okay, there we go. That's it.
Okay. So one of the things too that's really important is that we talk about inflation, we talk about Build Back Better.
Right.
Um, I think I seen last week Charlemagne interviewed Senate, or I'm sorry, Vice President
Right.
Kamala Harris, and it got kind of nippy at the end because he asked her a
Yes.
question. He asked her a question, and it was a legit question for a lot of people. Who's the president of the United States? Is it Joe Biden or is it Joe Manchin? But I mean, we have so much more I want to talk about, but we have a short amount of time. One of the things I do want to bring up is that people now feel like Congress is broken.
Yeah.
They don't feel like Congress is hearing them. They don't feel like the people in Congress really care about their table, what we call table issues, right?
Right.
What can you do if they elect you in the eighth district? What can you do to help bring some form of working together to Congress, some form of collaboration to Congress, some form of letting people know that we're still here and we're still fighting for you?
I think listening is number one. Listening to people's problems, you know, sitting around just talking to them, finding out what's important to them. Then, because we are in a district that currently is Republican, you know, it's going to be working across the aisle. It's going to be not just going along with the Democratic Party because it's the Democratic Party. It's going to be listening to what makes sense, looking at what's going to be the biggest opportunities for success. So that's the answer: listening, just listening to the people, finding out what it is that they care about, and making it work.
So, if people want to find out more information about you or your platform, more information about how they can donate to you. Where can they go?
Yeah, I encourage everybody to go to the website, www.butlerforgeorgia.com. That's spelling everything out. Butlerforgeorgia.com. I recommend people read the platform. You know, look at some of the policies, and if you feel like, hey, I can get behind this, I support this, then make a donation.
And one last thing I'm going to ask you is, you tell everybody, because we're posting this now, your Butler for Georgia on the very bottom. You tell everybody now in the next 10 seconds
Just right.
why Butler, why do they need to send Reverend Butler to DC?
Because I actually care. You know, that's the answer I can give you, because I genuinely do care about your life and what happens to you.
Man, it has been a pleasure talking to you today. It's been a pleasure meeting you. We have so much more work to do, and I know that we talked about things as far as criminal justice reform. Those are some of the things on the platform. I recommend everybody go to his website, www, and it's on the very bottom, butlerforgeorgia.com. Check out his website, see what he's all about. And man, I wish you much luck. I have
Thank
no, um, I tell people all the time, I don't envy people who are running for office. Definitely in 2022. It's going to be
you.
an interesting year in politics. We just got to make sure that we get everybody out who are registered to vote. And if you're not registered to vote, please, please, please go to sos.ga.gov, register. And if you don't know whether you're registered, please go to check them out. Go to the website because it's important for all of us that
Mhm.
everybody's registered to vote and everybody exercises their constitutional right to vote. Mr. Butler, thank you so much for joining us today. We
Yeah.
appreciate you. We appreciate your time. And we look forward to talking to you again. And for everybody who's joining in today, this is our last podcast for the week. We're all going to be kicking off our Christmas break starting tomorrow, hypothetically. So we thank everybody who tuned in. We thank everybody who watched around the world because we actually, our podcast is actually viewed around the world now. We thank you guys for watching. We thank you guys for being attentive. And we look forward to seeing you after Christmas break. Have Merry Christmas to everybody. Stay safe. Um, please, if you haven't got vaccinated, consider it. And please stay safe, wear a mask, and make sure that you love your family because you never know how long you have with them. Until next time, everybody, stay blessed.